Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is episode 307, and oh man, Jenny, I am beyond hyped for today's topic. We're talking graphene, and I promise you, it's not just hype anymore, it's happening!
Episode 307. And I can already feel the energy from you, Mark. Graphene has been that wonder material for so long, always, just around the corner. Quote, what makes now different? Did someone finally flip a switch that we missed?
Someone absolutely flipped a switch, Jenny. For, 20 years, graphene had this Achilles heel. No band gap. That means you couldn't turn a graphene transistor off, which is, pretty crucial for digital electronics. But then, Georgia Tech, led by the incredible Walter de Haescher, they cracked it. They really did.
Hold on, cracked it? You mean they solved the fundamental problem that prevented graphene from being a true semiconductor? That's a pretty big deal. Mark, I need details. How did they do it? Magic?
They used a technique called epitaxial growth. Think of it like this. They gently heated silicon carbide wafers, and as the silicon evaporated, the carbon atoms reorganized themselves into this perfectly ordered, single layer of graphene. And because it's grown directly on the silicon carbide, that interaction opens up a tiny, but crucial, band gap. It's stable, it's reproducible, and it's, get this, CMOS compatible. They published this in Nature earlier this year, and it's a huge deal. A monumental step.
So instead of having to transfer sheets of graphene, which I know was super tricky and often messy, they're growing it in place? That sounds far more scalable and compatible with existing chip factories? Wow. But what does this mean for performance? What makes it better, really, than good OL silicon?
Okay, get this. The graphene semiconductor they created has 10 times the electron mobility of silicon. 10 times! That's not just an improvement. That's like comparing a bicycle to a jet plane. It means graphene transistors, or GFETs, can operate at ludicrous speeds. We're talking over 500 gigahertz. Your laptop's CPU just shed a tear.
500 gigahertz? My laptop's CPU tops out at around, 4 to 5 gigahertz? This is rewriting the rules of computing physics. So what are the first places we're going to see this kind of speed deployed? Data centers? AI chips? Where's the immediate impact?
Definitely those, because remember, speed also translates to efficiency. Less energy wasted as heat. This is a big win for those energy-hungry data centers, but one of the most immediate impacts, and this truly astonished me, is in electric vehicles.
EVs? How does a super-fast chip help an EV? Are we talking about faster infotainment systems or
battery management systems, Jenny? We're talking real-time, ultra-precise monitoring of battery cells. BMW's already using graphene semiconductor sensors in their i5, and it enabled them to get an 8% greater energy utilization from the battery pack. Imagine that efficiency gain. Tata Motors, another example, saw their Range Rover EV's range extend by 42 miles just by using better graphene-based sensors for battery management. And it cuts charging time, too. Studies project a 35% decrease in fast charging times. That's a huge shift.
42 miles? And 35% faster charging? Range anxiety is one of the biggest hurdles for EV adoption, If graphene can truly solve that, this pushes electric cars into the mainstream far faster than any policy incentive. That's a huge real-world impact. But you mentioned something earlier about new device architectures. What does that even mean? Is it just making our current tech better, or something entirely new?
This is the truly enthralling part. Remember how silicon is good for a lot of things, but it's kinda rigid? Like a single-purpose tool. Graphene's versatility means it's not just about making existing things faster. It opens doors to entirely new types of electronics, especially in neuromorphic computing, which is brain-inspired computing, and in medical applications, which, honestly, almost sounds like science fiction.
Brain-inspired computing. Are we talking about brain-computer interfaces here, Mark? Because that sounds like something straight out of a cyberpunk novel. Or maybe a Black Mirror episode.
We aren't just talking about it, Jenny. It's happening. There's a company called INBRAIN Neural Interfaces. They're developing these incredibly small, flexible, graphene FET arrays that can be implanted into the brain. Yes, the brain.
Wait, implanted into the brain? What for? To give us telepathy?
They're designed to record and stimulate neural activity with precision. Clinical trials are already underway. In Parkinson's patients, their graphene FET arrays detected single neuron spikes with 92% sensitivity, compared to about 60% for traditional metal electrodes. Think about that difference. And because graphene is so thin and flexible, it causes 78% less tissue inflammation. That's a huge deal for a device designed to live inside your head.
Less inflammation from a brain implant is pretty significant. So we're talking about reading individual neuron activity? Could this lead to detecting seizures before they happen, or even controlling prosthetics with thoughts? This is truly life-altering technology, seriously.
Exactly. The FDA has even granted INBRAIN, Breakthrough Device, designation, fast-tracking their approvals. So this isn't some distant dream or, a theoretical application. This could be in clinical use very soon for conditions like epilepsy or Parkinson's. Imagine the impact that's going to have on people's lives. It's just incredible to consider.
Okay, that's astounding. But let's bring it back to Earth a little, shall we? Beyond the sci-fi level medical tech, what's the market outlook for graphene semiconductors? Big breakthroughs usually take a while to translate into significant market success, and often don't.
That's a fair question, and a very natural one. But the market projections are already reflecting this shift. The graphene semiconductors market was valued at about $251 million in 2024. And it's projected to skyrocket to $1.32 billion by 2032. That's a compound annual growth rate of over 23%. Automotive is a huge driver, as we discussed, but so are aerospace for advanced RF systems and, of course, data centers and AI processing. It's not just a niche market anymore.
Wow. So the investment is clearly there. But what about manufacturing? We talked about Georgia Tech's epitaxial growth, which sounds very specialized. Can we actually mass-produce graphene for regular chips the way we do silicon?
Yes. And this is where companies like Graphenia come in. They've refined the chemical vapor deposition, or CVD, transfer process. For years, transferring graphene from the growth substrate to the actual chip was a nightmare. Lots of defects, low yield. It was, frankly, a mess. But Graphenia announced they've achieved 95% yield on 200mm wafers using their polymer film process. That's a game changer for scalability.
95% yield on 200mm wafers? That's approaching industry standards for silicon. That definitely sounds like a mass production breakthrough. So the bottleneck isn't the transfer anymore?
According to Graphenia's chief scientific officer, Amaya Zurutuza, transfer is not the main bottleneck anymore. Quote, and they're working towards even higher yields and larger wafer sizes. Plus, the costs are expected to drop significantly. Right now, it's about $100 per gram, but projections show it falling to $15 per gram with new CO2-derived production methods. Think about that cost reduction, Jenny.
A 60% drop in cost by 2028 is massive. That makes it viable for so many more applications, not just the high-end stuff. It sounds like all the pieces are falling into place for graphene to finally live up to its promise. But is there any real downside? Any ethical or environmental considerations we need to think about? Beyond the glittering prospect of new tech?
That's a really important question, Jenny, and I'm glad you brought it up. There's what some are calling the BGOS, graphene eco-paradox. Quote, on one hand, graphene devices are incredibly energy efficient. They consume 30 to 40% less power than silicon equivalents. That's a huge win for reducing the carbon footprint of electronics, especially with data centers consuming so much energy annually. So good news there.
Okay, so less energy usage is a clear positive. What's the paradox then?
Well, if graphene makes electronics so much better, faster, and more efficient, it could lead to faster upgrade cycles. People might replace their devices more often to get those shiny new performance benefits. And that could exacerbate e-waste, which is already a huge global problem. We're talking millions of tons of e-waste annually, and this could just compound it.
So we're building greener chips today, but potentially generating more trash tomorrow. Can we ethically justify accelerated obsolescence if that's the side effect? Or is there a solution being considered?
It's a valid concern, and one that's being discussed. Companies like Samsung are actually exploring modular chip designs and better recycling processes to address this, but it definitely highlights the need for a comprehensive, holistic approach. It's not just about the tech, it's about the entire life cycle, from production to disposal. We can't just ignore the consequences.
Absolutely. And speaking of ethics, those graphene neural implants costing potentially $85,000 per system, medical equity becomes a huge concern. Should regulators force tiered pricing to ensure everyone who needs it can access this technology? Or is that overreach?
Absolutely, and INBRAIN is actually thinking about this. They've mentioned tiered pricing, like $15,000 for monitoring systems in developing economies, compared to $120,000 for full bidirectional systems, so they're aware of the issue. But it's an evolving discussion, and regulators like the FDA are still developing frameworks for these AI-integrated, adaptive neurotech devices. It's a complex, rapidly moving target.
It's incredible how fast this technology is moving, almost faster than the ethical and societal discussions can keep up. From transforming EVs to potentially curing neurological disorders, graphene seems poised to change so many aspects of our lives. Mark, if you had to sum it up for our listeners, what's your biggest takeaway from this new era of graphene electronics?
For me, it's that graphene isn't just an incremental improvement to silicon. It's a fundamental shift. It's unlocking capabilities that were previously confined to, well, science fictions. We're talking about brain-computer interfaces that decode neural patterns at single-cell resolution, or data centers operating at a fraction of their current energy footprint. The wonder material is finally here, and honestly, the future of electronics just got a whole lot more exciting. It's a new chapter.
I'm with you, Mark. It's not just about faster chips, it's about new possibilities, new frontiers. And that's a perfect place to wrap up this episode. Thank you for joining us on episode 307. We'll be back next week with more tech deep dives. Until then, stay curious.